Takozani Dimelang Khanyali Sedi. Hello everyone and welcome back to the one-on-one sessions with Gogo Msore, and I'm your host Gogo M, giving you guys tips, lessons and teachings on everything spirituality. First and foremost, before I jump into anything, I want to wish you guys a happy new year. I hope you guys had an amazing crossover, and I really hope that 2024 is treating you guys well. Honestly, I'm very hyped up about this year. I don't know why, but there's just a really good energy about it. Yeah, so anyways, today we're gonna be going back to pikas and their meanings, but with this video what I decided to do is to actually add the last colors of the pika and also add in just codes, just so we can finish on all of that, so we can get into other topics, because I don't like lingering around certain things a little too much. But just a recap for those of you guys that didn't see the previous video, Sphika is a spiritual cape worn by prophets and some church members that indicates their spiritual position and the type of ancestors that they have, right? So this is where, as these sipikas, they all have their own meaning based on their colors, and this is what we're looking at. Different colors of sipikas represent different ancestors and different positions of every spiritual person, right? And the same applies with the just codes. Even though the just codes in most cases they may represent a male ancestor that is governing a person, even female ancestors can come with a just code which can represent them in regards to the gift that they have and the manner in which should work in terms of helping people. So it's very important for you guys to understand what their meanings are. That way, when you are told or when you are shown that you need to get a certain speak or a certain just code, you know exactly what it is that you need to, what it is it's for, right? So in terms of the pika, I'm gonna be looking at red pika, purple pika, and black pika. Then after that, we're gonna move to just codes, which is gonna be green, yellow, blue, white, brown, and brown sack, right? So the brown sack one is actually the most interesting one, but yeah, let's get to it. Okay, all right, so starting first with the red pika, right? So the red pika is specifically made for protection. So this is the pika that you wear when you're praying for your protection, when you're fighting spiritual warfare, and when you want to prevail in whatever spiritual warfare that you're in, right? It often represents ancestors that have prophetic gifts and wungaga. So similar to the leopard prince pika, this one can also indicate that you have both traditional and prophetic ancestors, right? Even though the traditional ancestors with this type of speaker are usually the traditional ancestors that usually come with the normal traditional gift where you have to initiate and whatnot. Because remember, with the one year, the leopard print, it can be either the traditional ancestors which need you to go and initiate, or it can be the ones that yeah, those type of ancestors name. So this one basically indicates you have bongaka, which requires you to go and initiate, along with the prophetic gift, meaning that you use both traditional herbs and the washos and even water in terms of healing people, right? Can also be used for fighting spiritual warfare, and often the prophetic gift is a river prophetic gift. So usually most of the times when people have this type of speaker, I know that every single speaker has its own element, right? Blue is usually for the waters, yellow is also for the waters for Khanyali City, and blue is actually for the ancestors ba Mazulu. That's what they say it in terms of the skies, the prophets of the skies, right? But this one is actually also indicating that your prophetic gift is a prophetic gift of the waters, meaning that you are required to go to the river on a regular basis in order to actually maintain your spiritual gift, appease your ancestors, and strengthen your prophetic and your traditional gift that you have, right? We have the purple speaker as well, which is the second one we're going to look into. So the purple speaker is actually one of the most powerful speakers that a person can have, right? It actually represents the royal bloodline, the royal lineage within your prophetic ancestors. The same way that there are certain cloths, certain beads traditionally that indicate that this one does the same thing, right? So most of the times with this, people that have this particular spiritual gift or this particular bloodline, they have what we call spiritual angels or spiritual guides. These are the guides that guide them in everything that they need to do and how they have to do it, right? And most of the times the spiritual guides and angels get their messages directly from God himself or itself, right? Because in terms of like spiritual gifts and whatnot, yes, the main source of our gifts, the main messenger is God, right? He uses our ancestors, but you might find that these ancestors are messengers from another ancestor who's on a higher hierarchy, right? But in terms of like this traditional gift, or rather this prophetic gift where you have to wear a a purple is pika. This is whereas directly, without any further ado, you get your messages straight from the creator itself, which is actually pretty cool, right? So this also is a very powerful speaker whereby with it you can pray for your protection, for guidance, for clarity. A lot of people with this type of speaker find themselves in situations whereas their ancestors speak to them directly. Like the minute they ask something, their ancestors respond to them very fast, which is something that is very good and very rare in terms of spirituality, because we all know that in terms of spirituality, I mean the spiritual realm, there is no time, which often leads to a lot of people not getting their ancestors to respond to their queries or questions when they need guidance and clarity. But when you have this speaker, you can use it when you pray for clarity and you want immediate answers. This is the one that you have to go for, right? But remember, there are people that are supposed to have it, there are people that are not supposed to have it. Not everyone should go ahead and buy this type of speaker. Not everyone should do it, because if you get it and whereas it's not your ancestor's speaker, then you're going to block your ancestors at the end of the day, right? And lastly, when coming to the pika, we have the black speaker. So the black speaker is actually one of my favorites simply because I love wearing all black in most cases, but unfortunately I do not have that on mine list. Anyways, the black speaker is a speaker that indicates Mandawi spirits, right? So there is what we call prophetic Mandawi spirit. This is whereas a person who has Mandawi spirits but chooses a prophetic manner of healing and of guiding people. Because understand that Mandawi, it's a very versatile gift, whereas a lot of people believe that Mandawi you have to use the dollar all the time, and that is not actually the case. Some Mandawi people are lefaka, and whereas they see spiritually, they don't necessarily need to throw bombs to see what exactly is your problem and how to help you. So the black speaker indicates a Mandawi prophetic gift, and whereas it represents a Mandawi prophetic gift, this is someone who is required to go to the river on a regular basis. So the river is your best friend. You'll often be called to go to the rivers, to caves and whatnot, and that is specifically the right place in which you're going to connect with your ancestors, right? So these are also ancestors that indicate cleanliness. Like you need to be clean most of the times when you have this type of ancestors, and you need to work into the light, work through the light, through light work basically, right? And what I mean is that understand that yes, we do have a bit of free will in terms of how we help people, but that depends on our ancestors, right? Certain ancestors such as Mandawi, when you do things in a wrong way, they tend to neglect you or move away from you because you are harming people with the gift that you're supposed to help them with. So this is an ancestral gift that requires you to do things right all the time without disappointing your ancestors in any way whatsoever, right? And also another thing about it, because sometimes this black speaker can also be associated with what they call Grekeya Sipiri. So in terms of Grekeya Sipiri, there are two different notions of it, whereas some of it is good while others is not good. But I am going to make a video about this in details so we can all understand what Grekeya Sipiri is generally so and what it stands for at the end of the day, no? So basically we are done in terms of the pika. We're going to move to the coats, right? Jazz coats, right? So the first one is the green jazz coat. So the green jazz coat is its tunio from the mountains. So it's very similar to the speaker, the green speaker, whereas the speakers and the jazz coats are very similar. They might have a few differences here and there, but they're not as many. So I'm just going to run through all of this very quickly, but you guys should check out that video whereas the part one, whereas it goes into details about the speakers, because most of the like the meanings, most of the purposes of these pikas are also applicable on the jazz code. The difference is most of the times with the jazz codes, it may represent a male ancestor as opposed to a female ancestor name. So the green jazz is this tuya from the mountains. Is someone who is often called to the mountains to evoke their spiritual guest name. This is a speaker that actually indicates that your work is going to be through prayer. Praying is like basically your major form of work, whereas you heal people through prayer, you help people through prayer, and you also see things through prayer, meaning that you can pray for someone and their business just comes through. And that's actually the best type of a prophetic gift, because I understand there are different methods in terms of prophesying and whatnot, but the one where you just pray and information comes, I always found that those people or people that work in that manner end up seeing a lot of things about a person and getting everything into details, which is actually very nice, man. Some of them work in the fields and the forest. So as much as most of the times that you're required to go to the mountains, other times you find that your ancestors are evoked in the forest, né? And other times you might find that even the church that you're supposed to go to has to be in the forest. And I'm not talking about some of the churches where you see people wearing all white in the forest. There are different churches that represent this particular ancestors, even some of those churches, but the people, we would find them, most of them are wearing a green just coat, right? That is because that is the attire for the ancestors that require them to perform a lot of their prayers and rituals in the forest, né? And most of the time these people, you'd find them wherever they are, they have their spiritual sticks, and also like they call them the talk and whatnot. They will have those things to also help in assisting their ancestors in terms of working with them at that point in time, né? We have secondly the yellow just coat. So this one is a maternal prophetic. It represents the maternal prophetic guides, né? The ancestors from your mother's side of the family, the prophetic ancestors from your mother's side of the family, né? So this specific coat actually represents messengers and angels that are coming from your mother's side of the family. So these are the ancestors coming from your mother's side to give you messages and guidance, and to also show you and tell you what it is that you need to do in terms of appeasing them, and in terms of actually like pursuing things even further in terms of your spiritual gift, and also how it is that you're going to assist people now. So this is an Eastern from the rivers, so you're constantly supposed to be at the river. So as much as the green one is a prophetic one, they work through mountains and forests, but with the yellow one, it's where as you work in the rivers. It also indicates the ancestors of the light, ancestors that remove darkness, and it also represents that you're working through light work as well, right? And whereas you're working through light work is whereas your job is to heal people as opposed to harming or killing anybody, right? So let's say for instance someone comes to you and they have an issue whereas they are being harassed by a person, right? Some sangomas will say let's kill this person, which is no judgment, I am judging. Anyways, they'd be like that. But with this one, when you're working through light work, this is whereas instead of using those types of methods, you use your muti in a sense, where you can chase the person away or just make them forget about the person who is the victim in this particular case, right? So it's in terms of like light work, clarity, in terms of like your maternal ancestors from your mother's side. That is how they work. And remember that usually the mother's side is a very nurturing side of the family, whereas the father's side is a more violent side of the family. Not that they are violent to you, but they fight. They often fight for you, whereas your mother's side nurtures you, right? Number 3, we have the blue just coat, which is coming from the paternal side of the family. So if you listen to this a lot, it goes hand in hand with the candles. Understand that the yellow candle is for maternal ancestors, and it indicates light in a person's life. And the blue ones is a paternal ancestors, and it represents connecting with those particular ancestors, and also goes hand in hand with certain river rituals, right? So with the blue just coat, it's a paternal prophetic gift. It comes from your father's side of the family, and they are what we call the ancestors of the sky, right? Remember, we have water ancestors, forest ancestors, mountain ancestors, and we have the ancestors from the sky, and we also have ancestors, or fire ancestors, right? So these are the ancestors of the sky. So the ancestors of the sky are often of a higher caliber or a higher hierarchy in terms of a prophetic gift. These are usually the ones by long at the end of the day, they have a very high position in the church, or basically in the church they have a higher position because they work through the sky in most cases, right? They often, this is where a person who has this type of ancestors will often have dreams whereas they are flying, or they're in an airplane, or basically they're in the sky in their dreams most of the times, right? Hence they're ancestors of the sky. They use prayer to see, but can use a variety of healing methods. So they are not only confined to prayer alone, they can also at the same time use water, they can use diwashu, they can use salts, and like basically use all these different types of methods in terms of healing. That is why I did mention they tend to be of a higher hierarchy in terms of like your prophetic gift and how it works. And one thing that you guys should notice that this day and age, a lot of people, you'd find that they have the blue one, they wear the blue coat, the yellow coat, the green coat, and also a mixture of some of these colors, right? So this can indicate that certain prophetic gifts are joined in that process of initiating, whereas these ancestral gifts are working together. So this allows a person to be able to work in 2 different methods or 3 different methods or 10 different methods at the same time, right? And lastly, I did say that this is a prophetic gift that is evoked through the church. So let's say, for instance, you have a prophetic gift that requires a green jazz coat, right? Yes, you can go to church and evoke it there, but other times for some people it is not even necessary, because you'd find that you can actually evoke your spiritual gift by just going to the mountains and praying. That is why I always tell people that even before you go and initiate, right, make it a point that you train yourself spiritually, you train your spiritual gift, you prepare yourself, and by doing that, you go to the mountains and pray, you go to rivers if you're allowed to and pray there, you go to the forest and pray there. That is a way in which you evoke your ancestors. So specifically with the blue jazz code, you are evoked through church, and the reason why that is the case is because you end up having a high hierarchy in terms of the church, and you work through church in terms of helping people, man. But for the others, you might find that you can work in different methods. You might not even need to go to church in most cases, but you can still be able to evoke and use your spiritual gifts at the end of the day, man. Number 4, we have the white jazz coat, right? So in terms of the white jazz coat, this represents prophetic ancestors of the light as well, which is very similar to the yellow jazz coat. They use the power of prayer, which is very similar to the blue jazz coat, and they represent Manono spirit. So Manono spirit is the spirit of a child who passed away. So this could be a child who passed away via miscarriage or an abortion. It can be a child that passed away recently, whereas you as the person who has this gift is the parent of this child, or this could be a child that passed away generations ago. But whereas the ancestors are going to use this child as their messenger to evoke certain spiritual task, or rather to help you in terms of knowing what tasks spiritually you're supposed to perform, right? So they represent Manono spirits sometimes, not all the times, name. And another thing, Gordon, oftentimes you're required to pray at the river and at the mountains. So like I said, with this type of prophetic gift, it's very similar to the one whereby they wear the green jazz coat, the yellow jazz coat, and the blue jazz coat. The thing about them, Gordon, they have a variety of places in which they can pray, right? And understand that the white attire is actually very powerful. Like, I see a lot of people talking about different attires, what they mean and whatnot, but the white attire can actually allow you to connect with every spirit, every ancestor, and every spiritual gift on its own, because it doesn't have so many different colors that direct it to one side alone. So meaning that when you're wearing the white coat, you can connect to multiple ancestors, and even like the ones that needed like or want the different types of jazz codes and whatnot, or different types of speakers, because it is that fluid. It is an ancestor of the like the angel, né? And most of the times you find that these people oftentimes they pray with 7 white candles, and 7 white candles actually, oh, not 7, 13 white candles. That is actually the highest forms of prayer in terms of spirituality, and that is something that a lot of people cannot really get to, because yeah, it is that deep. Okay. And number 5, we have the brown jazz coat, right? So the brown jazz coat is associated with the Ndawe spirit, the Ndawe ancestors. Like I said, Ndawe can have a prophetic and a traditional gift, right? But this one, oftentimes with the brown jazz coat, you'd find that you have both traditional and prophetic ancestors. So your Ndawe spirit may be working in both types of gifts, né? It often represents a male spirit, a male prophetic ancestor, né? And this male prophetic ancestor is someone who is very strict. In most cases they are very strict ancestors, né? It is often paired with a hat and a stick. So usually the hat, you'd find those dedops, basically, like I don't know what they call them in English, just to be direct, but the formal hats the gentlemen wear, and also the stick. That is why you'd find someone who has this gift wearing a brown jazz coat. It could be a normal coat that is like very fancy and whatnot, or it could not, just depending on what coat they find, but they'll always have adopts and a stick with them as well. So these are very verbal ancestors, and they're very strict. When they want something, they want it, né? And when you don't do what they're asking for, they will block everything. So they're very straight to the point. Their character is basically more Dawe than it is prophetic gift, because we know that a prophetic gift in most cases is very nurturing, right? But the Dawe spirit, it's a water spirit, so it's a very strict spirit generally. So with the brown jazz code, you find that they're very strict, very firm and whatnot. And most of the time you'd find that you have this code, and instead of working in a prophetic manner, they might say, okay, work in a traditional manner, because given the fact that Mandawes are there, you might be appeasing your Mdawe spirit more than the prophetic gift in the Mdawe spirit itself, né? They are very powerful in intuition. So the people that have these codes are very intuitive, like they're extremely intuitive. You cannot lie to them, you cannot deceive them. Whatever it is that you say, whatever it is that you do, they will analyze it spiritually without like wasting time, and they will know when you're lying, and they will know exactly when you are wrong about something or when you're trying to hide something. Then sometimes they have bongoma as well, like I said, and also stunya is of the caves. So there is this type of stunya whereas you're required to go into caves and tunnels, right? Spiritual caves and tunnels to pray there, right? Yes, the spiritual caves and tunnels, some of them can be very deep, and whereas they're very deep, some of them can be a bit dangerous, because sometimes you might even come across mudimu wame, like the spiritual protector or the spiritual god in that particular cave and whatnot. But in most cases, you might not see him or it, but you will feel its presence, right? Yo, there's a story about a cave. I'm not gonna go there though. Anyways, this is where as this tune or this prophetic gift is evoked in the caves and in the basically inside the caves. And these caves in most cases are on top of the mountains right after you pass the waterfalls. Name most of the times that is how they are built in most prophetic spaces. You pass a waterfall, you get the mountains. That is how they are, and that is where you evoke them. That is where you heal and strengthen your spiritual gift. And that is where as you also need to use the waters in the caves just to strengthen your gift and make sure that it becomes stronger, and it works better, right? And lastly, we have the jazz coat with the brown sack. So I don't really have a picture of a brown sack with me, but what I will do is that I will try to look at for a picture on WhatsApp, so on Google. But just for anyone who's a traditional healer, we know that a brown sack has a lot of spiritual properties. It's one of the most interesting things. Like the first time I had to use a brown sack to heal a person, I was like, oh my gosh, I have super, like I was so hyped up, I don't want to lie. I was so excited that I could really use a brown sack to heal up. Okay, that is not what we're talking about. I just get really excited about this one. Okay, so the brown sack, this code belongs to Buketla. Ne? So the Ketla in most cases are what we call Nyakachubia, spiritual people that do not need to evoke and what to initiate and whatnot, and they're initiated by their ancestors teach them everything, right? So they are herbalists in most cases. Né? It represents a gifted person who will encounter hardships in their journey of healing their spirits. So basically with these people, before they can even do anything spiritually, they have to heal their ancestors. Name you'd find that their ancestors went through a lot of hardship in their time, and their main purpose is to heal those ancestors. And this is where as the process of healing the ancestors is not as easy as it is with other people, because some people you just go to the river and get a river cleansing and your ancestors are good, but for them you might find that there's a lot of things that need to be done. And even the process of doing those things, you find yourself encountering so many challenges, both spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. These people go through a lot of depression, a lot of like bad mental states because of the gift and the ancestors that are governing them, right? It is used to bring guidance to how it is that you have to help your ancestors, and brings light into your life. So this quote is to guide you and to help you in terms of getting like knowing how you need to help the ancestors that you are healing in that point, and also how to bring light not only to yourself and your ancestors, but also to the bloodline of your family at the end of the day. So it's very important to understand that this is a very heavy code to carry. It is not something that, as much as it's interesting and it's powerful and whatnot, most of the times the most powerful spiritual gifts are the most like hardest or even awful to have. You encounter more struggles when you're working with them than any other gift ever, right? And they're very stubborn. Most of the times the type of spiritual gifts are very like you find yourself being governed by a very stubborn ancestor as well, right? Okay, often most leave material things behind and they ground themselves. So these are basically the ancestors that want you to dial back and go back into your roots. They want you to leave materialistic things and live the way that your forefathers and the ones before them, back to the very first spiritual person within your bloodline was there. That is how they want you to live. They do not want materialistic things. So if you're a very materialistic person and you're called by these particular ancestors that wear the brown sack coat, then know that you're gonna have to leave the materialistic things behind. And whereas leave them behind, you need to start afresh and ground yourself, connect with nature, be one with the earth, right? Because at the end of the day, as spiritual people, we need to be one with the earth. It's just that we're living in this day and age whereas everyone wants to be pow. So this is whereas now we are all pow all the time, right? Hope you get what I mean. But the gift is a very powerful gift, and when the spirits are healed, then that is where as the healer becomes very unstoppable. Like this healer, you'd find that they have so many knowledge, like there's so much knowledge about spirituality, creation, like knowledge that is not given to just anybody. Like similar to Sanusis, the seers, they see beyond measures, they get guidance beyond measures, they have power beyond measures, but they can only access that once they have appeased and healed the ancestors that need healing. Anyways, guys, that is it for today's lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm already tired as it is. Anyways, but yeah, I'm gonna love and leave you guys, but thank you guys for joining me. And don't forget, in the next few days, I will be launching my online store, but it's gonna be on WhatsApp. But I will give you guys a quick detour on everything, on the products that I have, the ones that I made, and everything. So I'm very excited about that. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys have a beautiful one. Takazani. Bye bye.